Hey, hello world. Thanks for listening in. This podcast series is brought to you by Athena Solutions, helping companies to launch technology with great success, and PolyAI, who is a leading provider of engaging and lifelike voice AI for unbeatable customer service automation. My name is Chrystal LeWark, and I am a managing partner and technology advisor at Athena. And Stephen?
I'm Stephen Fine. I am the value consultant at PolyAI.
All right, great. Thanks so much, Stephen, for sitting in with us today. So in this first segment, I know that we talked about what we're going to do is focus on IVAs and or interactive virtual agents and how to avoid common pitfalls. When you're looking at this type of technology and introducing it into your business. And what we're going to do is just talk about key learnings that we have had with common customers to successfully launch this new and exciting technology. And really our hope, audience, everyone out there, is that this series is helpful to you, when you're going out and considering this path, and helps you to have a wildly successful experience. So just kicking things off with our first discussion point is one thing that I believe we've really learned together, over the last 18 months or so, is, just like any other technology project, it's really super important for a company to think through their strategy for IVAs before they begin evaluating options and meeting with potential providers. And from a preparedness standpoint, Stephen, what advice would you share on what these companies should be thinking about before they even start that evaluation process?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. And I think a lot of the work that we do with our clients is this consultative work. A lot of the time people don't have projects planned out around voice assistants, and we've really got to help them figure out, how do we get to this point where we're going to give you the best chance of successfully delivering. I think I break it into three things. The first, and frankly the most important thing, is just to get really clear on the problem that you're trying to solve, or the opportunities that you're actually trying to capture. Like, what are the goals of this project? Because this is going to frame the depth of the solution required, and really the KPIs that you're going to look at. I think a lot of this is around really diving into your data to understand those challenges. And I'd like to try hone it with a nice example of some of the work that we've done around this with clients. Is we were working recently with a major home services provider and doing discovery around what kind of solution and challenges that they're facing in their contact center. And one of the things that we found was that actually 41% of their calls that they were fielding had absolutely no chance of ever turning into a sale. These were calls that were going to the wrong departments. They were calls where they never offered this service. And a massive issue of this was they had their team and their sales team spending a lot of time on calls that they don't want. Now, Everyone always thinks about IVAs, we just go straight to automation. But actually, there's so much more that you can do with this technology with routing. And that then allowed to then focus on what kind of solution we should develop to solve that problem around routing. So get clear on the goal. Yeah. Number two is identifying what a good use case is. It's like, this is critical. Like, we've had quite a few deployments where there's or more pre-deployments where you're going after a use case that is extremely complicated and really is not that repetitive. And I always think, like, when thinking about use cases, what you want to do is draw out some sort of an axis, right? That says, well, what is the volume of this? Right? How often are these calls coming in? And then what's that level of complexity and repetitiveness? Now, you always want to start about, when thinking about these deployments, is start with high volume, highly repetitive, because this is where AI technology is incredibly good at taking out a significant volume of calls. And what you do is you start there, and then as you get success with that, you start looking at slightly more complex use cases that are high volume. So think about what a really good use case is point number two. And then the third point, and my the technical team will love hearing this, is really sit down and understand what integrations that you need for these use cases. So often what we experience is clients go, oh, we'd love to do this use case where we're scheduling bookings in our contact center, and then you sit down and go, okay, well, what availability do you have with integrations to actually complete that task through a voice assistant? And now a lot of the time the answer is, oh, we didn't actually really think through that we needed such deep integrations, and our two-man tech team is going to have to develop that for a couple months. So it's just about understanding what your dependencies and limitations are. And I think if you get those things around understanding your goals, identifying ideal use cases, and then what integrations you're going to need for that, those three things set you up for a successful deployment.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly what we found on every project, and just kind of going back and highlighting something where you talked about identifying what good use case is critical. One thing that I would recommend, or how we have done this with our customers, is there's really no better way than sitting side by side with one of your service reps and watching their workflow and seeing these types of calls, the types of calls that they're taking. And that's when you have that moment where you're like, hey, this type of call really did not need to go to the agent. And we're seeing that we're getting X% of these, and this is a real quick, hey, let's eliminate this 30% of password reset calls right off the top.
Yeah, I think that's like, we want to take away workload in those examples. And like, I think you're 100, there's nothing better than sitting down next to an agent and having to field these calls, because you just understand the pain that they go through on these pretty horribly repetitive calls day in, day out.
Yeah, make their life much better taking those away. So another topic that, I think that we should discuss when it comes to possible pitfalls, and we hear this often when we're talking and sitting with our customers that are thinking about dipping their toe in the water and learning more about this, is, they'll say to us, hey, we need to be really careful here because this project is going to be under a microscope by our senior executive team. If we invest in this technology, I need to be absolutely certain that we pick or choose a platform or partner that's really going to deliver on the call containment projections that we're seeing in, the business case that was delivered. So with that, what question should a customer ask to be certain that the platform is going to be a fit and success for them?
Yes, so I think that I'll start. I always like to start with like the business first, and I think that talk is cheap these days. I sometimes get sent business cases that clients have been like sent that 80% of their calls are going to disappear overnight, and like it's just going to save them millions of dollars. And I think people, that talk is cheap. Like we've been deploying this stuff, a lot of it, like for years, and like it's not easy to get 80% containment. So, really make sure that they have proven examples of what they're delivered. So ask them for those proven examples, and then make sure that they're open to reference calls with clients. Like you want to be able to get the truth from someone who actually went through this experience. So this allows them to ask like pitfalls of what that client who they've worked with have gone through. So I'd really say ask them about case studies and look at them with a critical eye, right? Like look at those case studies and don't just take everything as fact. Try and understand what they really mean by that and in what context those results happened. Second thing is ask about their support and their deployment methodology. And I say this because deploying this technology is hard. It is not something that, and it's hard if you want to do it really well. You can build an easy, like a simple-ish system, but it's not going to do what you want. So it's really understand like what kind of level of support are they going to provide you in making sure that the system is continuously improved, making sure that there's new changes that are added to increase that level of containment, and especially not just containment, to improve that customer experience, right? Like you're never going to get everything right out of the gate. So you want to make sure that you're looking at that data and then understanding where you can improve, making those improvements to get better. So I'd really like ask about their support and always tend to more support rather than less. Like this stuff is hard and you want to do it well, make sure that they're there to support you through it. And then the last question I was asked is just around technology, right? Like ask them if they're able to integrate with the systems that you have, and ask if they have experience. Like they don't have to always have experience in the exact CCaaS platform that they're integrating with, but make sure that they have an idea of how they'd integrate with it. So just ask about their integration capabilities, and how that works.
Yeah, completely agree. And on point two, when you were talking about the deployment methodology and saying it's hard, but the thing that we've seen with Poly and what we really like with, what we've seen with our customers is that you will step in and handhold them through that process. And that's super important in a partner. So this next topic is significant. So on the projects we've worked on together with PolyAI, you were able to integrate with the customer's existing systems, whether they were on premises or homegrown or cloud-based. Is this always the case, or have you run into situations where that wasn't possible? And if so, how did you work around that?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I can say that it's not always simple to integrate into systems. So we've been very lucky, but at the end of the day, our system is built in a way that we can integrate to almost all systems. It really depends on if the client if the provider gives us access, but most of the time we can integrate. It's just a varying amount of work. Right? And that's the way that I think it. We can normally do this, just sometimes it takes a bit more work. And I think like I'll give two examples. One is around there's this big shift to like replacing these old on-premise IVRs, and we keep coming across this. What we're able to do then in that example is and again, these on-premise IVRs often have like a long history of building in self-service into their IVRs, but you're trying to modernize. What we do in this case is we can't replace the whole thing overnight. There's a lot of work, and frankly, there's a lot of really good work that has gone into this over time. What we're able to do in that example is like mix the new world of like highly conversational AI, and then use that as a way to then route to old self-service applications, so that you slowly then you have this conversational tone, you take away a bunch of calls, and then for calls where you've built really nice self-service, we'll actually just route to those self-service functionalities that you've already built, so that we're not disrupting the flow of what you have at your contact center, and you keep your high levels of self-service. What we'll then do after that is actually then slowly chip away at each of those self-service opportunities and build out more conversational and frankly better flows over time. I think that's like a really nice example of what we're doing. And then the second one is just an example of a hospitality client where we just could not get API access to ID and V their customers, which was really frustrating. Just sometimes internal processes and tech teams don't have the capacity. Like they are always overworked. And it meant that we couldn't look up the journey that this customer had booked to go on. And really what that meant is we were struggling to tailor service. But this is where we use conversational design, and it's a lot of what we do to uncover what the journey that person was going on, and then based on that, what journey they were going on that we didn't have access to before, we can use that as a way to guide them down the right path of where they need to go. So it's kind of this idea of you can do some really smart stuff with conversation design to drive people in the right direction without having that integration. But know that down the line, you want that to really drive value from this kind of technology. You need to be integrated and be able to access the backend systems.
Yeah, all that information is super important. So thank you so much for, having this conversation today. And we hope, audience, that the information that we shared was helpful. If you have any questions or need complimentary support or scoping for your project, just reach out to us direct at support@athenatel.com, or even if you would like a recording. And we look forward to the next session that will be posted soon. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Thank you, Stephen.
Bye.